Gervase's Chronicle, when the moon split in two, a chronicle from 1100 AD by a Canterbury monk, Gervase. When the moon split in two, the Gervase Chronicle, written in a medieval manuscript, is in the library of Trinity College, Cambridge, of England. Gervase was a monk of the monastery next to the Cathedral of Canterbury and the author of 7 historical works, the most important of which is the Chronicle, which covers the period from 1100 to 1199 AD. Some of the most interesting parts of the manuscript do not refer to matters of church and state, but to astronomical events, including a solar eclipse and a spectacular description of the northern lights. But the strangest of all is a description of an extraordinary event that occurred June 18, 1178, according to the Julian calendar. Research by Rosemary Adolenus Apostolopoulos, 5 monks from Canterbury Abbey, made a report informing Gervase that immediately after sunset, they observed the upper part of the moon to split into 2 parts, and a flaming torch to spring up, throwing fire and burning coals at a considerable distance. The 5 men should join the group of people who occupy the special place in the history of astronomy because they all had the same experience and observed some phenomenon in the sky so strange that the rest of the world was amazed by its description or doubted its existence. In more detail, Gervase himself has recorded, this year, on the Sunday before the feast of St. John the Baptist, John the Baptist, as we know, was born June 24th, after sunset, when the moon had begun to be seen, a wonderful phenomenon was observed by 5 or more men who were sitting looking at the moon. There is now a bright new moon, and as usual at this phase, the horns of the moon were facing the east, and suddenly the upper horn split in 2. From the middle of this split appeared a burning torch which threw fires and burning coals to a great distance. Meanwhile, the main body of the moon below was writhing in agony, and to use the words of those who reported the incidents to me and saw it with their own eyes, the moon curled up like a wounded snake. After a while, it took on its normal form again. This phenomenon was verified more than a dozen times with the fire, and the fire took on various shapes, while after a while everything calmed down. So after these transformations, the moon from horn, that is, in its entire length, took on a blackish appearance. In essence, this episode is rare in many ways because not only is there no description of any astronomical phenomena like this in ancient literature, but it is also a mystery that was perhaps explained 8 centuries later. Jack Hartung and the Giordano Bruno crater. In the mid-1970s, geologist Jack Hartung, who worked at New York University studying the craters opened by meteorites that have fallen to Earth, was leafing through a book when he read a brief report on Gervase's manuscript. Curious, Hartung searched for the text of the Chronicle, and when he read the details of the lunar phenomenon, he suddenly understood what it could mean. Each sentence of Gervase made him believe more and more in his view. The highest horn was split in 2, indicating that dust or cloud had been produced by the natural disturbance, thus covering part of the moon from the view of earthly observers. A burning torch throwing up flames and glowing coals indicated that gases or liquids had been released when the lunar surface was struck, and the gases had formed a temporary atmosphere around the area of the struck surface, which would make the moon appear to writhe like a wounded snake. Hartung believed that in 1178, witnesses may have been the only people who witnessed the formation of a large crater on the moon. Hartung knew that what phase the moon was in June 18, 1178. It was at its beginning, a small strip in the sky, which limited the possibilities for where the impact occurred. When the satellite and Apollo photographs were taken, Hartung looked for a crater that matched this theoretical assumption and finally found one. It was 22 kilometers in diameter and was named Giordano Bruno after the Italian philosopher, mathematician, poet, and astronomer. The location of the crater in question is exactly where the monks described the strange mystical phenomenon in Gervase. For tens of kilometers around it, there were signs of some great disturbance from a meteorite fall, but also a spectacular system of rays, that is, the explosions, fire as recorded by the monk himself. In short, it's a continuous shower of small meteorites that fall in the dust on the surface of the star at such a fast speed that the system of these rays is eroded and explosions occur. And thus, it can be reasonably assumed that Giordano Bruno crater was formed during human history. One of these rays was 1,200 kilometers long and was clearly visible in NASA photographs. Hartung observes, in a period of 3,000 years, the chances are 1 in 1,000 that something like this will happen on the moon. The probability that there will be a report of such an event is even smaller, because only half of the moon could be observed. Observations were not made frequently, and the observations that were made may not have been preserved. In short, the likelihood that we would have a record of such a large crater being created today was even smaller. New evidence? A recent analysis of ancient astronomical records cast doubt on Hartung's theory. The impact of a meteorite large enough to form Giordano Bruno crater would have unleashed a major meteor shower on Earth. Calculated by Paul Withers of the Lunar and Planetary Laboratory at the University of Arizona, comparable to the 1966 Leonids, during which some locations recorded 100,000 meteors per hour. It would also have been a very bright phenomenon, very easy to see. At magnitude 1 or 2, it would have been a spectacular sight. Everyone living around the world would have had the opportunity to see the greatest fireworks display in history, according to Withers. However, no vigilant sky watcher of the 12th century reported such a storm. There was no evidence of such a remarkable storm of unprecedented intensity in any known historical records, including European, Chinese, Arabic, Japanese, and Korean astronomical records. The 1966 meteor shower. During the 1966 storm, some locations recorded 100,000 meteors per hour. So what did the witnesses that the Canterbury monk recorded see? An alternative theory holds that the monks simply happened to be in the right place at the right time to see a rebellious meteor that had already aligned with the moon and was about to enter Earth's atmosphere. This idea was strongly suggested by Withers and others in 1977 scientific paper. Withers believes that the 5 ancient sky watchers could have seen the illuminated image of such a meteor traveling along their line of sight rather than impacting the moon. It was a very impressive meteor that burst into flames in Earth's atmosphere. If you were at the right distance, you would have had the perfect geometry, he said. And that would explain why only 5 people were recorded as having seen it. Because meteors, commonly the fragments of a meteorite, become visible only after they have already been in the 45th to 75th mile of the Earth's atmosphere, according to the laws of the atmosphere so far. So please leave your comments about this, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.